ESPN 1000.
Hello, Bert.
Albert Breer,
Hey, Bert.
senior NFL writer for SI.com, joins Cap and J Hood.
Bert's it.
What?
You're it, Bert.
On ESPN 1000.
What do you mean I'm it?
You see, that's the game. I just tagged you, and you're it until you tag somebody else.
Albert Breer.
No, I'm not playing a game. I'm reading, Ernie, and I'm not it.
Okay.
On Chicago's home for sports.
But Bert is it.
It's now time for Albert Breer from Monday Morning Quarterback at SI.com with us here on Cap and J Hood on ESPN 1000. Albert, I don't blame you, man. Watching Dallas-Tampa, I got a little tired too, especially in that second half.
Yeah, that was you sort of think like whenever Brady's on the field that all of a sudden he's going to put his foot in the ground and turn it into a completely different game. And, you're going to look up 20 minutes later and all of a sudden the Bucs are going to be ahead. But yeah, I guess this year just sort of felt like the year maybe he didn't have the team around him to do that. A lot of guys on that team felt like they kind of got all got old at once,
Mm-hmm.
and so it absolutely sets up an interesting few weeks here for Brady, his future, the landscape of the NFL, really, and what he decides to do.
So let me talk to you about the state of the playoffs today. We saw Jacksonville wage this historic comeback. We see the Vikings with this historic home loss. So what did we learn over the weekend? I think it's a week-to-week league, and things are so different.
Yeah.
Like Buffalo was terrible. I fully expect them to win convincingly this weekend.
But Cincinnati, I think, has got another gear in them too.
Probably.
And I think the only team you walk away being like, wow, that team's a real contender. Or that team looks like, there are other real contenders, but like the team that like looked like a juggernaut out there over the weekend was San Francisco. And they're the one with the 7th round rookie starting at quarterback. And, maybe this is Tom Brady in 2001. But you assume at some point, maybe that's going to bite them. I don't know, so I think it's sort of indicative of how worn out teams are, how long the season is, how they keep stuffing more and more football into the year. And, I think this is sort of what you get. You get backup quarterbacks starting all over the place. You get teams that are beat up. And I think you do get some level of sloppy football. I will say this, too. The one thing that stuck out to me about the weekend was the two sort of unexpected close games, right? Like the Miami-Buffalo game and Cincinnati-Baltimore game. I think we both sort of expected Buffalo and Cincinnati to make statements, and they didn't. I think it's important to recognize that those are division games too,
Mm-hmm.
and so those take on a little bit different of a little bit of a different dynamic. So it wouldn't be shocking to me if that wasn't maybe the version of the Bengals and Bills we see this weekend.
So, Albert, two sides of the coin here with the Chargers and the Jaguars. Cap and I talked about the 4 interceptions for Trevor Lawrence in the offense, and then they come back to win the game. The other side of it is it's just the Chargers inexplicably just not running the football in the second half with a substantial lead. What do you think of both sides of that storyline in that game?
Well, there's certainly some game management questions. That's fair. I think this has come up with Brandon Staley, and it's easy to connect it to the fact that, it was 3 years ago that he was a position coach, So I think Brandon's really smart, has a lot of potential as a head coach. But now I think you see some of the things where it's like experience is a great teacher, and even as a coordinator, you're involved in game management stuff that you aren't involved in as a position coach. And so a lot of times these guys vault from spot to spot to spot. And, we're like, oh, well, it's good to hire a guy a year too early than a year too late. And I think you sort of discount what years of experience do just as far as building up like a memory bank of how to handle certain situations. So, definitely on the Chargers side, I think you look at it and you say, did you hand them a couple extra possessions because you weren't letting the clock run in the third and fourth quarter? I think it's a very, very fair criticism. What was the second part of your question again, Hoodie? Sorry, I'm a little long-winded there.
No. It's what I think you nailed it. We were talking about the Jaguars and the Chargers. The Jaguars side of it, 4 interceptions, but they found a way to come back and win that game.
Well, and you know what, Hoodie? Here's the thing. I can remember talking to Jordan Palmer about this, and he's worked with Trevor Lawrence, I think, since he was 16 years old. And he said to me, this is the flip side of the experience coin, right? Where, Jordan would keep saying to me, he's like, Trevor Lawrence has been like under a searing spotlight. And by the way, he grouped Justin Fields into this too. He said the two of them have been under a searing spotlight since they were 16 years old. And expectations have been on them since they were 16 years old. And they were expected to be perfect from the time they were 16 years old. And then they go to big schools, and right away the expectations are they're going to be superstars, and they're going to carry programs that have been winning. And like now they're playing in championship settings on that level. And it's just all of that experience that Trevor Lawrence has. Like, I don't think there are very many quarterbacks who at 23 years old could throw four interceptions in the first half of their first playoff game and not just completely crumble. And I think it was such to me, it's like such an endorsement of who the kid is, and why if you're Jacksonville, you have a right to feel so good about who he is and who he could be as a quarterback. Like, I was so impressed. And it's, again, a little thing, because if we're gonna sit here and play Madden and say like, well, yeah, like, you can just compartmentalize that. It's not the way it works. You know what I mean? Like, these are real people out there, and like for a guy to maintain his confidence after throwing 4 picks in the first half and to come back the way that he did, one of the greatest comebacks, in the playoffs in NFL history, I think says so much about who the kid is. And not even just about where he is, but really where he's going from here.
So let's talk about the Bears, because C.J. Stroud announced yesterday that despite some massive NIL offer that was reported out there, nope, $35 million guaranteed. If I'm a top 5 picks, too much to say no to. I'm going pro. If I gave you the choice to drop onto the Bears, Justin Fields or C.J. Stroud, which one would you take? And what do you think the Bears can realistically do if they decide to trade down? Because if I'm Houston, I'm like, I'm not giving you all that you want. I'll take the second guy.
Yeah, I guess you're coming to me as the expert because I saw them play so much in college.
Right.
I would take Justin. And the reason why, I think CJ's got a chance to be a really good quarterback. I think CJ's coming out a far more refined passer than Justin was. I think he's more developed as a pocket quarterback than Justin was, because he had to be, because he really didn't have the 4.4 speed he could lean back on. And Justin didn't lean on it that much in college. We also saw CJ switch receivers. I just know this. Justin Fields is a war daddy. And I saw him in so many situations where things weren't quite right, where he was hurt or where things had kind of fallen apart around him. I've seen him fight through so much stuff. Like, I just think when you look at what's inside of a person, I just think Justin Fields has it. And I think that's such a big part of being a quarterback. So I would take Justin Fields, and maybe I'm going to look like an idiot 5 years from now, because again, CJ's a more refined passer, but I just like Fields for who he is as a guy, and like what he brings from an intangible standpoint and how hard he works and all that different stuff. As for what the Bears can get for that first overall pick, I think CJ declaring might actually hurt the value of the pick a little bit, just in that I think Bryce Young would have had probably a sizable edge over Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, and where it might have been like, well, there's this gap if you're a team looking at quarterbacks, and we gotta find a way to get Bryce Young. I think CJ may have the ability to kind of get into, I don't think he'll catch Bryce Young as the number one quarterback, but I think he has the ability to get in striking distance, where there could be some teams down at 4, 5, 6 who say, we don't need to go all the way up to number one. That said, all it takes is one to fall head over heels in love with Bryce Young for you to go and get a boatload of picks. So, I think multiple first-round picks and then some, I think, is the price for that number one overall pick. And based on recent history, the Niners trading up for Trey Lance, Washington trading up for Robert Griffin all those years ago. Even like, you look at the Browns trading up or the Rams trading up with the Titans for Jared Goff, Eagles trading up with the Browns for Carson Wentz. Like, you're going to be able to get a big price for it, I think, when we get closer to the end of April.
Albert, as always, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Have a great day.
It is Albert Breer from Monday Morning Quarterback and SI.com with us here on Cap and